Hi, everybody. Welcome to the WHU Most Awesome Founder Podcast, a show about entrepreneurs, innovators, advisors, and educators, and the stories that make them who they are today. I'm your host, Dries, and today I'm happy to welcome to the podcast Dana Menzel, WHU alumnus and founder of Sayhitofinance. Dana, welcome to the show. First of all, what we always do is actually give our guests the opportunity to tell something about their personal life. So could you maybe just tell a bit about where you're coming from, why you decided to create this company? So the floor is yours, I would say.
Thank you so much, Dries. Yeah, it's very nice to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity in the Most Awesome Founder Podcast. So I hope I give you an awesome interview and an awesome podcast.
Yes, we always have high expectations.
Yeah. Okay, so of course my background is very awesome. I just recently heard the founder podcast with Kiran, who has a multicultural background, and my background is a little bit it's somehow from the same background, but a little bit different because I am born in India, but I'm raised in Germany. So my parents are German. I'm adopted, and I came to Germany with 13 months. I have 4 siblings, and they are German. So I'm the only Indian girl in this big family of 5 children. And it was really clear from the very first beginning, I have the same parents than all my German siblings, or they are my siblings, basically. But I was different. I was always, from the very first beginning, I was interested in art and in fashion and in jewellery, and I really I have chosen the art courses in school, and then I decided, because it was somehow very clear that I go for a creative career, and all my siblings did more or less the same. They went in a business direction, so there are some genetics that you cannot deny, and they just belong to you. And then they are these German values that I have also from my parents. And I think this together was a really good mixture of education. And after school, I decided to do first an apprenticeship, or I think this is the right word, a training of 2 years. So I really learned goldsmith in a workplace, at a manufacturer, where you really do the jewellery by hand. And after these 2 years, I decided to study graphic design. So I think really creative studies. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and goldsmith is quite a very specific thing, not? How did you come up with the idea to become a goldsmith? That's not something that you hear a lot.
Yeah, I think my parents were at the first sight a little bit disappointed because they thought that I will study. And then when I decided to become a goldsmith, it was with the intention, because I was so fascinated by jewellery and by doing something or creating something by hand. It's really you really build up something very precious. You work with precious materials. It's something that just brings joy to other people, and that, in best case, lasts for a lifetime. I think this was really my intention.
Yeah, and so that means that you did a kind of what they call in Germany vocational training, not so that you didn't go to university, but rather that you did an education that was very practice oriented, I suppose.
Yes. You work in a Goldschmiede studio, or in a Werkstatt. What is the English word for Werkstatt?
I actually also don't know what the English word is, but so a place where you work on the gold, not? Yeah.
Yes. I really learned how to do rings, how to do necklaces, and how to do bangles. Really from the very first step.
Okay, interesting.
It's very
And so then,
hands-on.
Yeah, and so then I suppose you did that for a couple of years, and then what was a kind of the next step? Because I also saw you have done in the end an MBA at WHU. So at one point in time, apparently you felt a need to go a bit into kind of the profession of your siblings and also embrace a bit the business life. How did that happen?
Yeah, when I finished my studies, I worked as at a fashion brand in the marketing department. And after a year, it was more or less clear that they are a little bit in struggles. So I decided to quit this job and to start my own business. And I started as a graphic designer, as a freelance graphic designer for agencies, but also I had my first own clients.
Okay.
And in the summer, I had kind of a pause because you don't have any clients, and that thought, okay, what can I do to fill my portfolio? And I just created a logo design, and it was for a jewellery brand. So I thought about a name and then a logo, and then I thought, oh, it would be very nice if I have some product. And somehow it happened that I ended up with the product just designed. And I started to look for manufacturers and for suppliers who could produce these products for me. And I showed all the prototypes to friends, and they were convinced that I would sell it. So I just really started out of a gut feeling my own jewelry brand. And luckily, I had a friend who is running a PR agency, and she was in from the very first beginning and helped me. And she was my PR agency then. I was in magazines before I even had an online shop and before I even sold the things to retailers. And then, I never planned it like this, but it happened. And it went in the beginning very well. And I was very, it was a development by trial and error. I never learned how to build up a business and how to run a brand, especially an online job. But then if you're in, you just do certain things and try. And if it's not successful, you try the next thing. And of course, I asked people if they can help and support me. And that's really how it went. And then we moved from Stuttgart to Düsseldorf. And I became a mother, and this was maybe the first struggle, because I was always on my own, and I really missed. So looking back, I know exactly what mistakes I have done. But in this situation, I really didn't saw the necessity to have employees who are running the business when you are maybe out or when you don't have the capacity to really work full time. And then the second child came, and I had to reduce more and more the working hours, and I felt a little bit lost. And then time flies, and you really you struggle with handling all the different tasks, and then the third child came, and I already spoke to my first employee, and then Corona hit me.
Okay, yeah.
And I really had no opportunity to work or to organize my daily life with the children at home. And at this time, I thought I really have to do now something for myself, for my development, or for my knowledge, for my educational development. And that's why I decided to do an MBA program. And I heard a little, impulse speech from Jackie Lawyer-Hinkson.
Okay.
She was also at WHU.
Mhm.
And I exactly know, I came home at maybe 10 in the evening and I researched in the bed with my husband which business school would be the best fit for me.
Mm.
And then we figured out WHU because it's in Düsseldorf. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy that I decided for WHU.
Okay, great. And so you did then the MBA, and then quite recently you decided to create a new company, no longer on the topic of jewellery
Yeah.
or gold or whatever, but more on the topic of finance. So can you a bit explain the story behind starting Sayhitofinance? So why did you want to start something completely different, completely new, even not having a very kind of extensive history or experience in the finance world? So what did trigger you to become kind of active in the world of finance?
Yeah, of course. I'm very happy to explain this. As I already told you, with this creative background, I actually never really cared for my own finances.
Okay.
And when I started the MBA program, I really had the biggest respect for all the finance courses. I thought I will never survive these. And then you start with financial accounting and you think, oh my God, you will never survive this. But I also realized that it's not rocket science. And I started to really rethink my own financial situation with 40 years, I have to say. And I started to do my saving plans, and I opened a depot, and I bought my first stocks, which are really successful, and I'm very happy that I did that. But without the MBA program, I would say I would never have done that. And I realized that a lot of women have the same struggle. They don't start because they just don't feel informed enough and they are afraid of doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But this is really, really dangerous if this is the reason that you don't start. I decided to do my master thesis about this topic, about the behavior of women with their finances, about their awareness, and about their dealing with their finances, if they deal with it.
Yeah.
And I interviewed many women, and I made a survey with, I think, more or less 200 women.
Okay.
And the results were so somehow shocking and interesting that I thought I cannot just put this master thesis on my desk and say, okay, it was a nice episode in my life. Let's go back to fashion.
But can you maybe, because you're saying the results were shocking, why were the results shocking? What was one of the most shocking findings from your master thesis?
Because so many women don't deal with their finances and really are threatened by old age poverty because they rely totally on their husband.
Yeah.
And I think also caring for your financial future is really a privilege.
Yeah.
It's a privilege of women who are educated. And on the other hand, it's also a privilege of those who have enough money. If you don't have enough money your whole working life, you even struggle more when you are retired.
Yeah.
And so it's more important for all those women who don't have a big income.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so they're exactly
it's,
the ones
it's a circle,
that need it the most. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones who need it the most aren't just not able to do it because there's nothing left at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So if you really have to care for how can I feed my kids tomorrow and how can I pay the rent, how can you just think about your retirement? So your life reality is a totally different one to a woman who has enough income and who has a leftover at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also because of my age, because now I'm in the middle of my life, I guess, and my retirement age is not so far away anymore. So it makes you maybe a little bit more conscious about it. But also because I'm a woman and because I have children, I know how difficult it is to work full-time, and you have so many other things you have to care for. Then this is something really uncomfortable and not really, maybe not interesting or not exciting enough to care for and to deal with.
And actually, when I look then at the company that you're building, Sayhitofinance, there's a very strong emphasis on community building. Can you explain a bit more what that exactly means and why for you it's so important to highlight this aspect of community building?
Yeah, it was a little bit a journey. So I started really with a completely different idea in the beginning, and then I did the WHU accelerator and spoke to many, many mentors. In the beginning, I thought women just need one platform, a one-stop shop where they get everything for their finances. And then I really researched a lot of competitors and what service is on the market, and I found out that there is already a lot. So there is a lot of information available for free. There are platforms where you can very easily invest. And anyway, if they only address women, they are not really successful. Or I don't know really one platform for women who is really successful. And we saw a lot of fintechs who shut down in the last month. So that I took this situation and I took the feedback of the mentors really serious and really looked into my results of the master thesis, because 54% of the women answered to me that they have a personal contact in when they need advice for their finances. So I think it's really important that you don't leave them alone and say, okay, you can learn everything online. We do a boot camp of 8 weeks. And then you know by yourself to open a depot and to buy your ETFs or your stocks or whatever. I think a community with a focus on physical events really gives you another drive and another motivation, because you cannot escape. And maybe if the personal exchange and the personal contact, this fosters also the credibility and the trust. And if you come regularly together, you see the progress and the development. And I think the spirit motivates even more than just doing it on your couch alone with a computer and everything online.
And so does that mean that you're planning to really organize kind of physical events where people meet up and talk with each other, or how do I have to see this community?
Yeah. So I understand myself just as the mediator or the connecting dots between women and the expertise. So because I'm not the expert, I will bring the expertise by speakers from the finance industry, and we do physical events. So I invite women to come to physical events in different cities, and they can learn and they can exchange, and maybe they also feel that they are not alone, and there are many women with the same struggles, and it doesn't matter which background you have.
Yeah, and did you already organize this kind of events? Did you do a kind of pilots already?
Yes, in September we do the first event actually with a company together, and I planned the first event with a hairdresser, so in a hairdresser saloon. Very nice. She offered me to just use her rooms, And I invite the women there, and then we do a little. So in the first events, I will talk about the results of my of the thesis, because I think many women don't know really how the situation looks like. And sometimes it's really good to just give them this push to really make clear what it would mean if you don't care for it.
Yeah.
But I plan, of course, to invite speakers and maybe also invite local banks, because I think they play a big role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they have a lot of trust. People trust their Sparkasse around the corner. So there are many different topics that you can talk about, and that you can choose speakers for many different topics for different life stages, and then you always address also different women.
Yeah. I maybe briefly want to have a kind of a broader discussion, because as you mentioned, you're a female entrepreneur with a kind of international background. You have raised 3 children. And I think today in Germany, there is a lot of discussion about how can we push female entrepreneurship? How can we make sure that more people are motivated to start an entrepreneurial career? At the same time, there are discussions about kindergeld and stuff like that. How much money should you get for raising children? Now, I think in the public domain, you hear a lot of quite abstract discussions about this topic, but you're a person that is actually experiencing this topic in kind of real life. So what would you say is the most challenging part for you to try to start a startup in your current situation, having 3 children? What would you see as the most challenging part of being a female entrepreneur in that kind of circumstances?
I think there are 3 things which are really struggling or really challenging for me. So first of all, I know it sounds bad, but financing is a really big issue, because I'm not a student anymore, or I'm now at the life stage where I really have to make sure that that I earn also money.
Yeah, that there is food on the table for your children.
Yeah. I have to bring something on the table. Yeah. I have to pay my rent. And also, I have to pay all my saving plans for later. So you really have to make sure how to finance your project, your startup. This is really a big issue. And then, of course, you have to make sure how to organize your life. I mean, now I'm a little bit in a shifting situation, because we have a help at home from the 1st of October. So I'm just looking forward. But normally my working day ends at 2:30. And that's not enough. So you really have to be very focused, very structured. Yeah. And you have to make sure that you can work in the evening. And sometimes my kids go to bed at 9. So I start reworking at 9. And that's too late. You can do that maybe for a week, maybe for 2 weeks, but you can't do that really for a long-term period of time. Yeah. That's not possible. And it's just exhausting and doesn't make you happy. And you cannot only work on the weekends. That's also not working. No. So you really have to make sure that you invest in some support at home, or you ask your parents, so the grandparents or your neighbors. I don't know, but I think you have to make sure that your kids are in good hands, and that your hands are free to work and to concentrate on you.
Yeah, so it's the kind of lack of childcare for your kids when school is finished at whatever it is, at 2:00 or whatever. No, I have to say I joined, or I came to Germany 5 years ago. Before I was in the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, it was relatively straightforward to get opportunities to give your children to kind of daycare until 6 p.m. It cost money, but you were at least able to do it. And so my wife and I were quite struck that when we came to Germany, that even if we wanted to pay for it, it was very difficult to get that kind of options where after school kids can go to another place to be entertained, and that parents have the opportunity to continue working. So I fully understand your pain there. Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think childcare, or the organization of the childcare, is really important. But as a third thing, I sometimes miss these. There are a lot of women networks and communities, but it's also somehow I feel always that everything is in Berlin.
Okay.
So we need it more in all over Germany, but it helps. It sometimes really, for me, very inspirational and very motivating when I meet other founders, female founders, and you really have to leverage your network and your community and take advantage of other role models that all have in the end the same struggles. But when you share it, it doesn't feel that bad anymore.
Yeah. So at least you're not the only one struggling with this kind of issues.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's on the one hand, simply financially, it's challenging. There is the issue about not having sufficient opportunities to actually create the time to spend on your startup, especially when you have kids. And there is the issue of having sufficient opportunities to network, not only in Berlin, but also in other parts of Germany.
Yeah, I'm alone, so I have no co-founder yet. And I think because of this, it's even more important that you really contact others and really exchange ideas or even get feedback. And I think that's why the WHU accelerator with the feedback of 18 mentors was very valuable for me, because now I really had sparring partners to just ask. Sometimes it's just nice to ask them, what do you think? What is your gut feeling when you just hear it from what comes to your mind in the first seconds?
Yeah. And the fact that you're saying, I'm at the moment a solo founder, so I don't have a co-founder, was that a very intentional choice that you say, I want to start this up alone? Or is it just that you have not yet found the right person to do it together with?
I have not yet found the right person. I don't want to stop it just because I'm alone. But a learning from my first venture is don't do it alone. I think it's always better if you have a partner. But I think if I just start, it's better than just waiting for the perfect co-founder.
And what kind of person would you be looking for? What would although you're not looking for the perfect one, what would be a kind of your preferred kind of co-founder? Do you have a kind of image in your mind of what kind of person you would be looking for?
I think that a finance background, of course, would be perfect, because then we have these two. I come more from the marketing side and the creative side, and I think I'm strong in the communication. But if you have really the expertise, then this would be also very great. But as I know, it's like a marriage. I think if you find somebody who's really committed and who burns for the idea and who maybe already built up a community or is related with female topics, I would always say yes, of course. Because I think what is really important, or what is the most important, is that you love each other. And you can really perfectly work together. I think the personal relationship is really the most important.
Okay. Because as we talked before, you have already quite some years of experience in creating your own startup activities. And this is not about VC backed up startups. This is more what we
No.
would call a kind of a lifestyle startup. But still, I think that's very important that we have a lot of this kind of startups where people can just kind of create their own activities. Now, if you look back a bit at the trajectory that you have done in the past, I would say like 10 years, and you need to give advice to starting female entrepreneurs that want to do something similar. What kind of advice would you have for them? What would you recommend them to do, or maybe not to do?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I think my biggest mistake was that I just built it out of a gut feeling. And I never had really a plan. So I think it's important to know where you want to go.
Yeah.
So your vision must be clear, and don't do it alone. I think this is really my biggest advice. Don't do it alone. It's always easier if you have a co-founder or if you have two co-founders. You complement each other. You can exchange ideas, and you also go to so many bad times. It's always easier if you do it together. And I always thought I can do everything, and of course, you never can do everything good.
Yeah,
not reality.
Yeah, so you would say this kind of game is really a team that you need, where you can enjoy also the burden of when it's going difficult, not?
Yeah.
Okay, clear. Maybe then what we always do at the end of the podcast is also just ask for some inspiration. So do you have any books or podcasts that you can recommend to us? Something that you think is was very inspiring to you?
Yes, I can. It's so my favorite podcast is I think a very famous one. It's the Fast and Furious podcast with Lea Sophie Kramer and Verena Pauster. And for me, it's very important to do regularly sports. So I always take this opportunity to hear the podcast of them when I go for my jogging round at the River Rhine. It's a very it's fresh and motivating and inspiring, and they are very very nice and friendly and sympathetic, and I really just like them. And you feel a little bit that you know them when you hear them every week. Yeah, and I think the topics are always very interesting because they invite also founders, but also entrepreneurs, founders, politicians, totally different topics. And sometimes they just give very hands-on advices. And you can really learn hard facts, very easy to implement, how they structure their life and their working and their families. And I thought it's really helpful.
Okay.
I can just, I can really recommend this. And I recently read a book. This is something totally different. I read it because a friend, it was a recommendation of a friend, and it's a mom of 3 children, and she's from Silicon Valley, and she's a teacher. And when I read this book, I thought that there are so many parallels to your leadership style and to business life. It's really good. It's called Panda Mama from Esther Wojcicki. And she's also now a speaker for big companies. And that was also very inspirational.
Okay. Maybe to go briefly back to the podcast, because I think the podcast that you mentioned is one of the rare podcasts when you consider the topic of entrepreneurship that I think is being run by 2 females. I think And we are
Yeah.
a bit ourselves in that situation. Most of the podcasts are having male hosts and co-hosts. And they are, I
Yeah.
think, especially in the German landscape, one of the very rare ones where we have 2 female co-hosts. How does that make it for you different, that podcasts? Do you really notice that they are able to kind of bring something different on the table that other podcasts like this one with some male co-hosts cannot deliver?
I feel that they understand my situation. I mean, they are maybe far away from what I've done, so I'm really full of respect for them, what they achieved so far. But anyway, they have children, they work. Lea Sophie Kramer I think she was separated from the father of her children, so it's even harder for her to work and to structure and organize her daily life. And I think she really, maybe this is the fact that I feel a little bit more related to them.
Yeah. No.
Than to a totally male-hosted podcast. But I also hear male-hosted podcasts, of course, if the topic is interesting for me. Yeah, but somehow maybe this is
no, but it's interesting to hear how that kind of podcast can make a difference, and I think they identified a very nice kind of and a very relevant gap in the market, and of course the success of that podcast really shows that there was a real need for that. So in that way, I think that really addresses something that we didn't have before.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Dana, then I want to thank you for sharing some of your insights, but also your experiences. And again, although you're old, I don't want to say, because I'm actually much older than you still. So it would feel strange to call you old, which I think is actually not the case. And because you were saying I'm close to my retirement, I was thinking, nah, not that close.
No, maybe closer than when I started my career.
Okay. Yeah, we're always getting closer to the end, no? That's how it goes. No, but so thanks for very openly sharing your experiences. I really liked it. And I think it's also important for our audience then that we have this kind of talks where it's not about, I've created 5 successful unicorns, but more people that are at the starting point of developing a new venture, and that we can also talk a bit about the challenges that brings along. So I think that's also very relevant for our audience. So thanks a lot for being willing to share. And I also want to thank our audience for listening to the podcast. If you like it, please don't hesitate to give us stars on whatever podcast device you're listening to. And I hope you will join in again for our next episode. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. And thank you, Dries, for giving me the opportunity.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.